Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be talking about the elephant in the room with Rise of Kingdoms and how the majority of you, as in 99.99%, have just been playing Rise of Kingdoms conservatively in a very limited way, but I would arguably go as far as saying the wrong way on what is important to look at first when playing this game, and how you have been led down this path of believing that Rise of Kingdoms and how we play the game is by default a war game, where it is a individual progression game. It is, how am I going to make myself better? How do I improve my account? How do I make my march the best that it can be? How can I level myself and my account in the fastest way possible? How can I be the best player? And as we like to often say, right, there's no I in team. And this is also not to say that individual progression across the many facets that are included within RoK is bad. Those things are necessary, of course. We have to do that, right? It's the whole point why they allow for you to upgrade and level things and go gather resources so you can do that, compete in events so you can get materials here. But it is not the primary way, and it is definitely not the main way that Rise of Kingdoms should be looked at. And this goes even beyond RoK. This is Kingdom Builders in general. And I'm going to explain that over the course of this video. Let me start off with Rise of Kingdoms is not Rise of the players. It's not Rise of how can I individually pimp out my account in the best way possible. Those are more passive things that happen just from playing. The game is called Rise of Kingdoms. It is a kingdom builder. You are here to build a kingdom and to be a part of building that kingdom. Keyword there. You are a part, a moving cog, a supportive, helpful piece. You are a part of a much bigger thing. And that thing is not directly how well you can improve your account. It's about how well can you contribute and support and be involved and engage in the building of said kingdom, whether it's yours or helping another. That is what Rise of Kingdoms and this genre of games is really about. It's not about me, being able to go and beat anyone else on the map, so to speak. Those are, that's not the primary focus. Those are things that come with, right? They are extensions of what we're doing in the game. And those are, as we mentioned, those are great. You need to know those things. But the problem, and really the more hurdle obstacle here, is that the way that, for example, whether it's just the lack of information, the lack of preparation that the developers have put out when it comes to how to play the game, maybe they did it on purpose, whether it's the lack of information, the lack of content that you have content creators that are putting out about the game, not a slight at them, it's just the focus is that, and we'll show this in a little bit to hammer this point home on this front, is that you have a lot of content creators that put out content specifically about how to progress in the game, or they'll show you wars or fights, or talk about updates that are coming out. And don't get me wrong, those things are required. Those things are needed. Those pieces of content have value in their own right. But I just personally do not believe that those are the most important pieces of content that the average player, especially a new player, should really be introduced to first and foremost, right? Or even just something that they can eventually stumble across. And because of that, it has created this vacuum within Rise of Kingdoms where we believe that the entire game in and of itself really is a war game. It's fighting first, it's attacking, it's pillaging, it's civil wars here and there, it's all individualistic. with how we approach the game. It's almost like we're just putting a bunch of individuals on the map, and it's about which individuals can kind of exceed in certain areas, or individual alliances that exceed certain areas, instead of how can we really build something sustainable that's going to last for a long time. How can we work together to ensure that we are preparing in the best way possible to unify as early as possible for things like KVK, to better position our alliances to be more competitive and have more of a ideal situation to develop for things like Osiris League or AOL for Ark of Osiris. And when we look at kind of end game content for kingdom builders and RoK especially, right, we look to things like KVK, where you're able to fight against other kingdoms, your kingdom fighting against other kingdoms. And if you want to be in the best position possible, you want to have a lot of activity. You want to have people progressing and powering and leveling up. But the most important thing is activity and player retention. You need players in order for your kingdom to be able to go and compete against other kingdoms' players, right? You need a player base. That is your meat, if you will. And if we look at that and we then think about, okay, well, this is what kingdoms are building towards, right? Now, what's interesting is that you'll often hear kingdoms talk about, yeah, we need to build towards things like KVK. Right, we need to be, and here's Lost Kingdom, just to give you an example, right? So you have different alliances from different kingdoms that are here starting out, and you can see, the map here as well for how the positions are on the top right. But this is what we're looking to get to, right? You never hear people say, well, you need to be, we need the strongest players to get out because those are the main people that are gonna win the entire KVK for us. Or, if you don't have the best of this or the best of that, we're not going to be we're not going to be able to win. You usually don't hear people say things like that. It's usually first and foremost, we need to have a lot of players and as much activity as possible. And because of that, it also factors into what is the daily life going to be like. These are the most important things that factor into literally every single thing that we do in RoK. And yet, these are the least talked about areas of the game, probably outside of myself, who covers this content. And that's not to really tout myself on the back. I just know what I do versus what the other content creators are currently doing. Again, as I mentioned, not a slight at any of them. I'm just looking at, what am I putting out versus what are others putting out. And this is why these pieces of content are the most important, because it doesn't really come down like you can progress and level up your account in the best way, the fastest possible. But if your day-to-day life experience in the game is not enjoyable, you will not have fun. And more than likely, you will either go look for another kingdom to play in, you will re-roll your account, or you'll just stop playing and uninstall altogether. You have to enjoy and have fun playing where you are. Right? Now, this applies for the majority. Of course, there's going to be, the devil's advocates out there of the world where some people just, whether you're rogue or you don't care about social interaction and you're just going to play, right? There's always going to be people on multiple sides of multiple aisles. But for the majority of people, I feel as I'm in that majority, I enjoy the social interaction, the social engagement, that social aspect that we get from playing RoK, being able to go and build relationships, make friends, get in voice calls, have, long conversations that just go on too long during the day, right? You kind of get lost in just having, a good discussion with people, or you're interacting, you're having fun. You guys are getting on Discord and doing events or card games or just fun games you can interact with people, right? Maybe you guys do town halls or meetings, whatever it may be. Those are fun. That type of socialization is probably the biggest factor that many players enjoy and get out of playing these types of games, maybe just playing games in general for a large chunk. And so I think these are some of the most important areas, and yet they are the least talked about, and therefore have led Rise of Kingdoms down this path of this is what it is. And this is kind of how we've developed certain trends in areas. And this is why I feel that this is something that is a lost art. You know, a good example of this is when you hear people talk about how many alliances they think need to be in Zone 3, or how many alliances you're going to take with you to KVK to fight, or, you know, that you need to control the entire Zone 1 province for one alliance, or we need to only have 3 alliances, 1 per each in Zone 2 to spread out so we can maximize. But in the same breath, you're also hearing these people say, well, we need to have as much activity and as much player retention as possible going into KVK, and people often say that activity is, you know, overpower. It's activity over power, right? Where you want your kingdom to be as active as possible, because usually the power just kind of comes with that. And so it's funny to me when I kind of hear these contradicting statements of, you know, you have people on one side that are doing these things that are limiting how kingdoms develop, and then on the other side they're also saying, well, we need to have as much activity as possible. And obviously this doesn't go for every single person, but the majority is where I often see this trending in. Now let me show you something that I think is really interesting to kind of add on to this point, is if we look at the RoK Discord, and let's just go to media chat, for example, right? So let's just take a look here, and we'll just go back a couple days to show you, right? So you have, I can't understand that, but we'll say best pairing cavalry, new world record kill points, siege tower battles, power up level 4, 1 troop delete, satisfying free kills, Egypt update, you shall not pass. I'll not read mine. But you got what, pass 5, awesome war, who won Kingsland, realm, free to play tech, right, 4 drop attempt. Let me see. Looks like KVK or Kingdom Pass there. Egypt must rise, some info leaks, civilization. Let me see, live chill and fight. Daily stream, free to play, game of power, massive push. Let me see here. What is this? Desert Conquest, right? Another KVK fight. Live with Red, Strife. Right, avoid mistakes. This is the good one there. As an example, let me see. Right, best free to play pairing, infantry, refining equipment, best epic commander. Right, and then let me do this, right. And again, I'm going back just a couple days here, but even here, right, you can kind of see a brief trend, and then let me go here, right. So I'm going to look at a couple of the YouTuber channels, and I'm just going to do a quick search here, and I'm just going to let's just type in manage, right. Let's just see what comes up, right. We'll type in manage, or we'll type in maybe kingdom, right. So we'll look at metric. Okay, so how to lead an alliance, my approach and tactics, right. I mean, this is what I would consider to be a good video. I think this is really important because this is a daily life thing that people are going to experience at the kingdom, right. Because you have to think about the overall health of the kingdom and sustaining that, which includes all of the players there. If you're just focusing on how an individual player can progress and improve themselves, that's great for that individual. But that doesn't really help the individual understand how they are a part of a bigger piece of the pie. And that is the kingdom as a whole. Right? Day-to-day life is the most important thing in a kingdom. And that is what, along with when you think about kingdom management, is the most important thing when you are playing Rise of Kingdoms. And so I'll look here, right, and it's how to lead an alliance, good stuff, cool. Right, do this, make a farm account. Now, I think this is actually okay. Beginner guides are good. Right, get strong alliance tech recommendations. I actually think this is good as well because it hopefully helps people understand. Right, solo flag, best city design. Let me see, troop trades. Okay, so, you know, pretty much, I think, there we go. Oh, so here's another one, right, which is how to organize or find a great kingdom. You know, #1 priority. I actually think this is a really good type of video when it comes to management. We got a new player guide. I think those are good. Let me see, restart project. I mean, that's something different. Quick start guide, spot. Okay, cool. Right, so you have some of those. And now let's look at another channel just to show. And again, we'll just type in manage. Right, alliance management guide, beginner's guide. Right, so this is something. Another one here, alliance management guide. We got... let me see, what is this? 3 years, beginner's guide, resource management. This is actually a pretty good video, at least based on name. I think that's good stuff. Alliance resources, territory management, best tips. This is actually another really good one I like, just based on the name. We have, let me see, how much whales missing, butcher, right? And then what we could do as well, and I'm just gonna look at one more here, right? And then we'll look at one more thing. right? So manage, okay, micro improvements, rage. Okay. So now what we're going to do is this. We'll do one last thing. And let's just look over the past, couple months. Or maybe just maybe going back like a week. Okay, so we got, what is this? Like who won? We're trying King's Land. Okay, Blockade, Siege, Swarm, Egypt Reveal, 300 Rain, Leonidas, Babas. Okay, Swarm, Yikes, Crusader, Fort Winmore, Fighting Baba, Entering Strife, new KVK details, Surprise, Next Prime, Heart's Desire, who will win, Battle Royale, Siege meta. Let's see, we're back to about a month. Top 4, Entering, Holding, right? And I'm just going to go back a little bit for each. Let me see, Flavius meta, monthly offer, I maxed everything, CBO testing, CBO, game dying. Let me see, Hunt for History, best 551, free to play new player equipment, okay. Team draw, legendary combos, worth it, team draw, Charlemagne. Let me see, boost, iconic order. Okay, so we're like 2 months back. Okay, cool. So now let's look at Shinchi. So we'll go here and support troops. What do we have? Free to play, Armin, Blank Gold, True Tact. Let me see, Scipio, Archer, Boudica, Temple Zero City, New Civilization coming, pushing tech, power for free to play. That's actually not bad. How to unlock T5, right? Free to play, Hate Crystal, Whales unlocking, We Arise. Okay, let me see, Zero, Conquest, 4 weeks jumping. Instead, we got Impressed for Whale Imprisonment. We see Battle Report, GG, Death of my Free to Play. Mistakes were made in the city railing process, 2,500. Biggest, Who Stands a Chance, Martel. Okay, and then we'll look at Flesh real quick. Let me see, Egypt update, Fort, Hellbrook Roost, lots of KVK stuff here. Blockade. Let me see, Henry, lots of KVK, Imperium. Looks like more fights, more KVK stuff. Towers, pass opening. Civil War, Flavia, Zero, pass opening, Scipio. Okay, cool. So I think if I'm just going off this, the point in me showing you this, again, as I mentioned, right, and I'll say this for a third time, this is not to slight at all any current RoK creators, even the ones that I just showed here. What it is meant to show is that there is a trend that has been happening pretty much since Rise of Kingdom content started being created, since the game was initially introduced, and this is also a part on the developers, which is that there is really nowhere in the game that talks about things such as kingdom development, that also factors in to how you manage a kingdom in all the different areas. There is so many areas to cover that have just never been touched on really at all. And even if it was one video a month, right, or 2 videos a month or something like that you would see creators put out that touch on these things, that would help the current narrative that has been shaped around Rise of Kingdoms, that it's a war game first, we just need to fight, we need to improve ourselves individually, we just need to be the best individual player we can be. But you don't really see content being put out there, again, as I mentioned, aside from mine, that I have seen from my experience so far, that touch on those the most important area that I think is a lost art at this time. Because what we always have to remember, as I've said before, is that the way that a kingdom can sustain itself is by being active, having good player retention, and having a good day-to-day life experience, right? Having good high morale within the kingdom. But there's a lot that goes into that on a day-to-day basis that you have to put in if you want those cogs to keep spinning. And that is something that I think, and again, as I mentioned, I feel is the most important type of content and the most important areas that go into Rise of Kingdoms that can lead to actually more sustainable kingdoms. It can lead to higher activity, more people, more players being retained in kingdoms for longer periods of time. It could lead to less dead or less low activity kingdoms that I actually think are really important. And because of that, it could actually keep players in the game longer, playing more, and therefore spending more money. But these are just things that I, again, believe really need to be touched on and highlighted, because this is just something that this is where the game is trending right now, because it's so convoluted. Like, there's just so much noise everywhere about this is what we're doing, and just not enough emphasis, right? And then you wonder why you have kingdoms that are dying or becoming low activity, or why you have civil wars that happen, or why fights and things like that break out. Most of the time it's because people just don't really know how to manage or take any care to learning or trying to figure out why things typically trend in a downward direction for the majority of kingdoms, and not knowing that a lot of these things are controllable or avoidable. And so anyways, again, I just wanted to make this video to highlight some of those things, as this is the type of content you're really going to see from me, is more kind of trend content, some statistical content, managing a kingdom, managing expectations in a lot of ways. And as I said, I don't think that the other type of content is bad at all. It is good content. It's needed and necessary content. But as I've said, I just don't believe that it is the most impactful content for what the game really is. And I hope that I at least did a good enough job to try and explain myself, my reasoning, show you some references, and then try to give you a good conclusion here at the end. That's it for me. Until next time, as always, I'll catch y'all later.